Ladies and gentlemen, to the House of Footy. We are back again with a full house today. I'm your host, Ray, and alongside me are Gio
Yo, yo, yo.
and Mac.
What's good, boys?
And on today's podcast, we are reviewing the World Cup final. And for those of you who watched it live, you know how crazy it was, no matter who you were cheering for, or if you were just a neutral hoping for a great game. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social medias, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and get in touch with us. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. Lastly, we are now uploading House of Footy YouTube videos, so please, if you can, like, comment, and of course, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our content. The link to that is in our bios, both on Twitter and Instagram. But a lot to discuss about this final. 3-3 in full time, and then Argentina taking it in penalties. But let's go straight into the first and second half of the games. Some changes were made to both teams compared to their semifinal matchups that they took place in. Di Maria came out to start for Paredes, and Rabiot and Upamecano were back in the starting lineup for France after not starting against Morocco. But Gio, give us some of your thoughts on how that first half went.
First of all, I just want to quickly say congrats Croatia, because we're not going to be talking about any of that game. That game is a moot point after seeing a game like that. But all credits to Croatia. Great send off for Luka Modric. But yeah, no. First half, France were lost. France were struggling with any and in any and every way. Struggling to string passes together. Offensively, it didn't look like they were really getting chances. Well, they really weren't getting any chances. It was all Argentina. The way they were moving the ball, off ball movement was great. Di Maria was phenomenal. He was killing Jules Koundé. Yeah, no, I think Argentina got off to the start that they were kind of expecting. I think everybody was more so expecting, as well as France played, they would create a couple more chances against, some would argue, a weaker defensive line compared to the two teams. But yeah, that wasn't the case at all. Everybody, I guess their game plan was to come out and play a little bit more offensive, just because they know how conservative France can get under Deschamps. So no, props to them. They did a fantastic job and really took advantage and got a stranglehold of the game very early.
Yeah, it looked like France were just gonna run it back, basically, keep the same game plan. Try to fix what's not broken. But Argentina really looked like they were on the front foot, and I guess it showed, right? McAllister early on, I think 5 minutes in, gets a shot off, and it really shows the type of game that he would later on have amongst other their Argentinian players. But Mac, what did you see in that first half?
For me, it was less so not even just like the first half, and I'm going to coin this phrase, and I think you both will relate a lot to it. It was pre-Acuna and post-Acuna, right? So pre-Acuna sub for Di Maria. The game was only going to be won by one team. What ended up happening, of course, in the beginning of the game, as Gio and you highlighted, Ray, where Di Maria started, and when everyone looked at that team sheet, okay, we're assuming where he started his entire career for Argentina, and most of his time playing throughout many of the clubs that he's played for, on the right wing. Because the traditional thought process for a lot of these teams that have gone against France is we want to be able to get in behind that Theo Hernandez spot. As he overlaps Kylian Mbappe, both of them are defensively lacking. I think that's the most generous way to put it. Let's see if we can expose that space. They did the reverse, and this is a consistent theme for Scaloni, the manager for Argentina, is that game over game, his lineup adjustments have been on point. Instead of employing him on that right-hand side, he chose to go on the left-hand side. Because what ends up happening when you're Di Maria putting him on the left-hand side is that back three remaining of Koundé, Varane, and Upamecano, they shift over, which creates a lot of space on the attacking side against France. So every single time Argentina had the ball, the first outlet was, let's see if we can get Di Maria one-on-one and isolate against Koundé, who is traditionally not playing as a right back. That's not his preferred position. And Di Maria was able to cook and allowed Argentina an easy way out whenever they did experience any pressure on the ball, which was very little. Because France up at the top between Giroud and Mbappe, they're not naturally going to press players very, very well. They really relying on the work rate on that midfield. So they were, in that way, outnumbered the midfield, were able to get back the ball, retain possession. When they lost it, were able to get it right back and immediately shift it out to the left-hand side. And the other way around, by having it all the way on that side, it was as far as possible away from Mbappe. So he had the least amount of impact whenever the ball was going out to Di Maria. So tactically, you have to give Scaloni and his team much, much credit, and they implemented very, very well prior to, of course, Acuna coming on. So for me, that's really where the dividing point was, where the first 64 minutes, like I said, there was only one team going to win. There was no shot for France whatsoever. Of course, that did go and end up to change, and we'll definitely get to that later. But pre that change, they were spot on and were playing as well as you could in the final and giving, and I think in recent memory, probably a dominant display within that first 70 minutes, as we've seen in the final in a very long time as well.
Yeah. On that note, Di Maria, obviously a player that stood out, player that won the penalty. It was deemed that he was tripped by Dembele as he broke into the box, and the penalty was converted by, obviously, Lionel Messi. Now, we can quickly have the discussion whether it was a foul or not. I am in the sense that a lot of these fouls that are given are very weak, and we can obviously touch on the penalty that was awarded to France as well. I have the same feeling for that, but I guess quickly, Gio, was it a penalty? Was it not? What did you think about that?
I think we're just so accustomed to watching the Prem and how physical the Prem is, and those types of fouls that aren't even given during those types of games. So yeah, like in my eyes, because I'm so used to the Prem, I'm a little brainwashed that those are soft fouls regardless, whether it be France's or Argentina's. It's a physical game. It's not like, it's a no contact sport. So there's going to be contact. It more so seemed like he tripped over his own feet prior. But yeah, no, I personally wouldn't have liked it to be called a pen going both ways. But it almost seemed like a makeup call going both ways. But hey, again, just because we're so used to watching the Prem, I guess other people aren't. So I can see how it can be called. But again, once it was called, again, VAR isn't really used in these types of situations, as it hasn't been used throughout the tournament. So I'm not surprised that it was given.
Okay, I guess Mac, same to you.
Based on the consistency for the tournament, I think that was a penalty. That's what we've seen the entire tournament. Those calls are going to be made, as well as the referee was consistent throughout the game. Very similar something happened on the other end, and he was consistent.
Exactly.
So that's really what you want from a referee. You want from kind of that job is consistency, and you have to give credit to him. He refereed a great game. I don't feel like he missed a lot of things, and I can see why, from our perspective, watching a long-term physical league, why we're maybe not used to that. But the standard for these international tournaments are very, very different. So I to a sense, I agree with you, both of you, but I'm a little bit more neutral on it.
Okay. That being said, though, Messi converts the penalty. Hey, 1-0 inside 25 minutes. What a great way to start. And it continued to be that great with that fantastic team effort, that perfectly executed counterattack that really was the most amount of touches that Argentina took, and that was Messi taking 2 touches. And McAllister making a deep run to in basically down the spine of that French team. Gio, that's how you got to do it. What would you think about that?
That's as clean as it gets. Obviously, people are going to gawk over Messi's touch, which was a great flick. It was a great flick on. There's a great amount of spin on that ball. So yeah, fair play to him. And there was a guy closing out. So, if I was the guy closing out, I probably would have fouled Messi. But they might have, played the advantage. And it still would have ended up back in the back of the net. But yeah, no, that was great. And very unselfish of McAllister. It was very easy for him to just want to take the shot and want to get a goal under his name. But he saw the open man. Di Maria has been on fire pretty much up until then, and he wasn't on fire for the other chunk of the game as well. So yeah, no, great square ball, and great for Di Maria to finish that one.
Yeah, I mean, on that note as well, great execution as well to play that, because oftentimes it could be under hit, over hit, and it just played it well enough for him to get in front of the upcoming Hugo Lloris, and he just put it past him. And so at that point, Mac, it was all Argentina. It didn't really look like France had a foot in the game, so they went on to make two subs. Ousmane Dembele and Olivier Giroud were taken off, and oncoming were Marcus Thuram and Kolo Muani. What did you think about these subs?
I thought it was very harsh on Deschamps for them individually. I don't think if I'm the manager, I could do that, because you're looking at Dembele and Giroud, the all-time leading goal scorer for France. You probably ruined a relationship, something that they will never forget ever again, and never really trust you ever again as a player, because you're taking off and really if you take off one player, one of them, you can be like, okay, maybe it was for an injury. We can kind of have an excuse for rub that. Two, this is purely tactical, and you need to get them both off, and they haven't done what you wanted or given enough to the game. Which, fair play. It's harsh, and in terms of you're kind of a cynic on it and kind of a hardliner, you look at this, you know what he needs to do, he needs to do. But you really probably ruined relationships going forward with those two players. Unfortunate, as well as you can argue it didn't work out well enough, because the change in pace of game did not happen until this 80th minute. So those subs did not have the impact that he wanted. So you could argue he really didn't get what he was looking for from that change. And why not wait the extra 4 minutes till halftime to make the change then? So it's really, he put two people on blast that I feel like it was a little bit harsh, but I can understand from the perspective that you want to stop the momentum, you want to stop Argentina playing. Maybe these subs can do it. What the subs did is shifted Mbappe into the middle instead of playing out on the wing, and brought two wingers on that we're going to track back and offer as well a little bit more pressure than what Giroud was offering up top by himself beside Mbappe. So I could see where you come from there, but the risk reward benefit for me wasn't there for Deschamps instead of waiting for another couple minutes.
Okay, same question, Gio.
I mean, I think, I mean, it's easy to say that, like, obviously it didn't work in hindsight, but again, one thing for me is, at the end of the day, it's the World Cup final. I understand you guys are top players at your clubs and things of that nature, but if I'm the manager and really my job is on the line, I gotta make a change regardless of how you feel. Whether that relationship is broken or not, I need to do something to spark this team. It could have been the 30th minute, it could have been the 45th minute, it could have been the 60th minute. I need to do something. And he did it. And I don't think he needs to answer to anyone, or be questioned by anyone. If he felt like it was the necessary change, it was the necessary change. And of course, added the Dembele one, we can all argue that, maybe it wasn't the right move at the time, but because, there was already news out about Giroud injuring his knee in the training session prior to the World Cup, then I can see that, right? Like, you want, someone that's going to cause a little bit more trouble up front, and Giroud wasn't doing it. And it was clear to see, like, the offense wasn't really connecting. So he had to make a change, brought in some, more sizable attacking threats, and of course it didn't make a difference until later into the game. But if it needed to be done to whether get a spark from the other guys or get a spark from the players you just subbed on, that's his decision to do it, and I have no issues with that.
I just jump in. I think though, I agree with most of what you said. If he was right, but he wasn't, so he deserves to be questioned. You can argue, I need to make a change. I'm the coach. I have to do what I feel like is best for my team. Great, but you should still be questioned. Why was that change needed? And maybe could have done something else differently. That maybe that change wouldn't have to have been made, or maybe make the right change. So I think that's more so where I'm coming from, where as a coach, if you make the wrong play call, eyes are going to be looked at you in every sport. That's just how it's going to be naturally done. And unfortunately, he made the wrong play call here from his starting lineup, but that's not what he initially should have done. So the changes that he did make, which also weren't needed to be done at that moment, right? Neither of them worked. So that's why there should be questions asked. He's done a great job of France, being a France manager. It took them to back-to-back finals, won a World Cup. You got to give him his plaudits there, and he deserves some flowers for what he's done with his adult squad. But he should still be asked questions, for sure.
And we'll touch on this afterwards, but yeah, I gotta agree. I think yes. So I agree with Gio in terms of if a change needs to be made, a change will need to be made. And football is very different from basketball, hockey, whatnot. You have timeouts, and for me, it's if we're down 2-0 and there's still some time before half. If I can change something before their other team gets time to regroup, then that's to my advantage. That's the only way I look at it. Obviously, it didn't work out the same way. He had good intentions, but maybe it didn't approach that way. We saw it as we're moving on to the second half now. Argentina really came out strong, controlled a lot of the first half of the second half, and really nullified France. And it really looked like the changes that were made didn't really make sense. And so until really, I would argue, Tio Hernandez was replaced by a midfielder by the name of Eduardo Camavinga, who played that ball over the top to Mbappe. He gets a touch on it. It's sort of like just trying to get it forward as soon as possible. And like you guys mentioned, Kolo Muani gets taken down inside the penalty. Again, it's one of those calls that was, I think, 50-50. In my eyes, he was kind of going down already, but the penalty was given. And immediately, Mbappe's on it. And I think this is pretty much the start of that Mbappe run. So, Gio, I guess give us some of that backdrop to what took place after that penalty and after that, what took place.
Yeah, if you're talking about, just because we were talking about subs just now, the impact sub was really Kingsley Coman. And he came on and he really attacked Acuna, that side at least, really just tore him to bits. And I think everybody saw it. Whether it's pace, whether it's skill, there was levels to that shit for real. Kingsley Coman was having a day against him. Obviously, we saw him limping on the pitch. Maybe he got knocked in the knee. Just needed to shake it off. And once he shook it off, he was flying. And it was that ball to Kolo Muani. And then he flicked it over. I think it was to
Mbappe, who played it back to Kolo Muani. To which?
No.
Which one are you talking about?
Right.
Oh,
yeah, to Mbappe. Then then he got flicked over.
Yes.
And then the madness happened. Yes. I think we can all agree that it was madness. Being as us three have played, football for many years, I would say, to take that with that amount of space on a volley in a World Cup is ballsy. And to do it in that fashion and to score, to put it exactly, I guess, where he wanted it was absolutely crazy. I mean, there's no way I was the only one who screamed and jumped out of my seat after that.
Oh no,
that was crazy.
I think your swear word might have been a little bit different than mine in that moment, though. To be fair, so in terms of that moment, the chaos really starts, I think, pre-game, and a lot of the talk was who has mistaken them, and a lot of us were maybe picking like a Hugo Lloris or maybe a Romero, who actually played a really good game, goes in for a rash challenge. I think we even joked I had a ranking of who I would put, and on that top 5 list was Nicolas Otamendi, and for him, this was the mistake that really opened the door for France to get back in, because he tries to head the ball to then control it, and then Wani jumps right in front of him to be able to win back possession, instead of just simply clearing the ball, right? And something he would have done kind of day in, day out, and that's what he would have normally done in that position. So it was a mistake by him to create the opportunity to open the door for France, right? So I do want to be able to start off with that, even though thus far throughout the tournament, he had played very well and it probably looked like their most consistent center half. Not so in that game. But then immediately afterwards, that just lit a fuse under the France team where, just like what happened with Netherlands, it was very much the same game. It seemed like the game was over prior to that. After the stop from Di Maria, everyone was celebrating. They were hugging. They thought the game was over in a lot of ways, just like it happened with Netherlands. And it was just the replay of that. And once they got that first goal, as they always say, the most dangerous lead in soccer is a 2-0 lead, because once that first goal is in, the momentum's all with that team. And France didn't need much time. It was 90 seconds afterwards Mbappe scores that goal. I do want to you have to give him full credit with the technique. He did everything right. He got under the ball. He even dropped his body to be able to make sure, you know what, I want to try to keep it in as line as possible. Because a lot of players, if they tried that, which they wouldn't, that's flying straight over the net because they're going to lean back or they try to stand too far straight up and they don't get contact. But he went to the side, tried to hit off from kind of a side cross angle to make sure that the ball stays very, very low. And he was very successful and caught Martinez in a spot where he's anticipating a touch. So you're catching the goalie kind of unexpected. So full credit to the technique, and one of the few players that in that moment, I would argue, would try that. Like, nobody else on the pitch tries that. Messi doesn't try that. Martinez would be breaking people's... He didn't come on at that point, but if he was on, he would have broken somebody in the stands probably. You know, like, it's just natural. So you have to give him credit for that. And it seemed like from then on until the end of the game, in terms of at least regular time, France were in a position where, they have this now. They have the momentum. Can they go on and kill it? And Argentina's hanging off the kind of the edge, right? Of course, we all know that they did hang on, but you can see how quickly things can change. And it turned from a World Cup final, which seemed like, yes, a classic that people go back and watch for Messi, to come into one of the best games of all time because they set the stage for that in the 80th minute. So it was obviously not great for my heart, but a joy to watch.
Yeah, I mean, the easy saying as well goes, it's a 90-minute game. Even if you can control 89 minutes of the game, it can all fall apart in a minute, right? So that's the way it was, and obviously end of full time it was 2-2. And then what happens extra time happens. So let's take a quick break here, guys, and then let's discuss that in more detail. So stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We're going to continue our review of the World Cup final, now going into the extra time period. A lot of madness that took place in the game, but a lot of madness that followed it up. So, Mac, give us some of your thoughts on that extra time period.
So it started off really slow for me. It's like everyone's just in shock of what just happened. I think even in a lot of ways, France more so than Argentina because they didn't carry on the momentum. They're like, oh shit, we're actually still in this. You know, we still get another 30 minutes potentially, 30 minutes to be able to play this game and see if we can come out with a win. So they very much, in my opinion, they could have come into the extra time riding that momentum wave, but they really didn't. And it seemed like, at least early on for me, Argentina had got back into the kick of things where after the first 5-10 minutes of the first half of extra time, they start to get their groove back, start to be able to build up a little bit better. More so focused on the right-hand side now that they've kind of made those changes for France, where Camavinga, phenomenal player, did a great job in kind of helping out in the midfield role, but still not naturally as a full back on the left-hand side. So they did start to expose that side a little bit more. And then I know to jump straight to it, there's a couple chances for Lautaro Martinez, who had come on the 130th minute for Alvarez, back-to-back, in the span of less than 60 seconds, where he has a shot blocked by Upamecano about 8 yards out from the net, which...
Great block.
Great block, but you got to shoot that first time, or you got to take the touch, realize that you're about to get your shot blocked, and not target for the far side, right? One of the two options, he was incorrect on both, and then immediately right afterwards, it's set through on a breakaway, slows down, and Upamecano comes around to block him again. So he got shut down twice, which was kind of funny and fitting to his tournament thus far. But at the very least, it showed that Argentina were much more in the ascendancy to start off extra time, and definitely going into why they ended up scoring the first goal for sure.
Basically, I think that time to regroup after that shocking end to that game was like, hey, boys, we're here. We're still a game. Let's get back into what made us successful and try to exploit some of the weaknesses that France had. And it led to the goal where Matthew noted it as one of the ugliest goals that were scored, I guess, in this World Cup final. It was a nice play, though, with the ball being played over by Montiel, who finds Lautaro Martinez, first time to Messi, who finds, I think it was Enzo Fernandez, back to Lautaro Martinez, who hits that shot straight at Hugo Lloris, and Messi follows it up, puts it in the rebound, and at initial thought for me was Lautaro Martinez has to be off, but replays and VAR confirms that Varane was the one that actually kept him on. So, Gio, what were your thoughts at that point in the game?
My heart was shattered. Obviously, a Man United player doing that for me was devastating. And when you go look back at VAR, you see all everything from Twitter about how his ass kept him on side. Stop doing squats, things of that nature. It's all hilarious, but it was tough. It was very close. It was very close, and sometimes these games, and especially sports, it's a game of inches, and that's what it came down to. Again, the goal itself, it just sucks for Hugo Lloris. You don't make a mistake all tournament, and I can't even say that this was a mistake. It was a reaction save, and maybe if there was a defender closer to Messi, or realizing that Messi is floating in the box like that, tracking back, things of that nature, it would have ended differently. Or if Jules Koundé didn't run past the line and want to chill in the net, as opposed to on the line, it could have ended differently as well. But from my eyes, I think he was just exhausted, and he just couldn't stop himself from running, and just ended up in the net. And Messi being Messi, we've seen crazier things happen when the net's open and players are on the goal line, and you just shank the ball, whether it slides up your leg and you kick it straight up, things of that nature, or off the crossbar if you're trying to just bury it, try to hit it too hard. But yeah, no, ball crossed the line, and the goal was eventually awarded. But yeah, no, that's just being aware, and you do still have to give credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it could have been easily put away. It could have easily been misplaced or scuffed at, but hey, the ball went in, and it still looked at that point like Argentina were going to close it. So everything goes back into, I think they may have brought at that time, I guess this was right before the corner, 115 minutes into the game, they brought on an extra center back to defend, I think, a corner. But straight off of that corner, Gio, the ball falls to Mbappe at the edge of the box, shoots it, and it goes off the hand, of the arm from Montiel. And give me your thoughts at that point.
Literally, this was Diego Dallo on Kimpembe PSG, but from the opposite side. So honestly, that instantly it looked identical, but from the other side. And then and the same thing was given. I think this one was even more obvious than the Kimpembe one that I'm referring to in the Champions League, if you guys remember that. But yeah, no, that was obviously it was the arm, and he put himself in a vulnerable position. He turned his back away from the ball, sticks his arm out. That's a penalty wherever.
Exactly.
And that's a right call. And again, Mbappe steps up. Who else but Mbappe? And everybody saw the replays of him, giving the ball a little kiss, and and then he puts it away, goes the same way, and makes no mistake of it.
And a lot of players I know, or pundits on TV are saying, when you go to block a shot, you never turn your back, and I think that's one of the reasons as well why that would happen. Any flailing arms, if you just stand up straight, arms beside you, you can't really be called for that, and that was a mistake that let France back into the game. But also, like the way they finished the second half, Mac, there were chances, and one chance stood out at the 120-minute +3 mark, where I think it was Konate who basically hoops the ball into the Argentina end, and it just passes everyone, and Koulibaly finds himself alone in front of goal against Emi Martinez. And what happens then, Mac?
Well, Martinez makes a fantastic save, probably the save of his life, something that he will definitely hang a poster of himself doing on every single one of the walls in his house, 100%. I think Mwani, though, he does make a mistake, because the other side of the net was wide open. It's completely reactionary. He's not, and when he plays for club football, from what I understand, he's much more of a creative player, less so a kind of clinical player up front, where he's not really known for his goal scoring ability. And I think more of an experienced player would shift it across the goalie, versus he just tries to shoot straight down and hope that it goes in, and Martinez does the rest, right? So unfortunately, that's definitely a missed opportunity. Not as egregious as the one literally a minute later, but still something that I think he would look back on with regret for sure. But Martinez, he did what he needed to do. He came up big, strong, and I don't know if you've seen the screen capture of it was just those two players, and you think that's probably a for sure goal. 9 out of 10 times that you see that, and this is one of the times that the goalkeeper makes a fantastic save. I do want to just jump backwards. I know I'm going back, but in terms of that Messi goal, more so I think that could have been, and I know obviously as we know it didn't turn out that way, probably the most iconic goal in his career was probably the ugliest goal of his career. That's more so what I meant, where in terms of it's a scramble in, and it's a full note to all burgeoning strikers out there. Crash the net. There's nothing to lose. You may get that rebound, you may get that goal. The greatest player of all time, he did that, and look what it got him. Fortunately, they didn't end up winning the game because of that goal, because we still had a couple other twists of fate. But for that individual save for Martinez, that was huge, because of course at that time, if anyone scores there, even though based off what happened for the rest of the game, it would have been over at that moment, right? But as I kind of alluded to earlier, immediately after that chance, the ball comes back right down the other way. Montiel gets played in on the right-hand side, crosses to Lautaro Martinez, and does, I think, Gio, I don't know if I can steal a saying of yours, he does his best Lukaku impression I've ever seen in my life, where from 8 yards, he misses a header by 3 meters. If you go back and watch the replay of it, it's obscene. I don't know if his contact lenses weren't on right, or vision was blurry, or if you guys remember LeBron James a couple years ago in the play-in tournament, where he's like, "Oh, I'm seeing 3 baskets, and I just shot for the middle one." In this case, Martinez, he shot for the far right one and completely fucking missed the net. That was horrendous, but and that of course closes out the extra time. But for me, those sequence of moments, it was. I was dropping in our chat talking to each other. I was like, I can't watch this. It's too much. Yeah. This is obscene. How did anyone come up with this as what would happen? It's insane.
And I know that we're just rounding it up and we want to go straight to pens, but there was a point, I think one of the last kicks of the game where Mbappe gets the ball on that left hand side as per usual. He goes through Otamendi. I can't remember the second defender that was stepping up, but second defender goes past him as well. He's about to take a touch past the third defender. I think at that point it might have been Romero who just sticks out a foot. But if he got past that and basically tucked that in, that would have been 4 goals for him. And that World Cup in a World Cup final to score the winning goal, 4 goals, would have been different. It would have cemented him in a whole different league. But just wanted a quick mention for that. But let's go straight to the pens, guys. Just a recap: Mbappe and Messi trade their goals in the first couple penalties taken. Kingsley Coman, unfortunately for him, his shot is saved by Martinez. I think it was Paulo Dybala who converts the second one for Argentina after coming on late in that game, and then
barely slides it underneath Hugo Lloris's feet because he goes straight down the middle. You can see he was stressed until the ball wins the net.
Oh, I would not be able to handle that pressure. But Tchouaméni, on the other hand, looked very, very comfortable walking up to that penalty, and then misses the net, and so that really puts it nicely for Montiel to win it. The guy who gave away the second penalty for France to really bring them back into the game, he is the one that scores the final penalty. And obviously the scenes that we saw, players running around everywhere, half the squad is with Messi celebrating. I'm not sure if, at that point, I'm not sure. I think you can forgive Argentinian players, Gio, if they are not really consoling the French players at this point because they just want it. But I guess overall those celebrations match. I think we were talking about sort of that relief that Argentina felt, and Messi. I would expect if it was Neymar winning that World Cup, tears right away, all of it. But for Messi, Gio, you and I had sort of the same idea where it's sort of he was just relieved that he won it. So give us some of your thoughts for that.
I mean, for a great player like him, to finally achieve and to check the last award off the list, I mean, what else can he win? This was the last piece. This was the last piece of Exodia, folks.
I would argue the MLS Cup if he comes to play in the MLS. So we could,
Oh man, that he would come and destroy Carlos Vela, who was a former Barca player, for like maybe like 10 days, because you realize that there's levels to this and that you're not that great. You may be great in the MLS, but you're not that great in Europe, buddy. But yeah, no. It was a great moment to watch as a, like, obviously, it's pretty evident that I'm a Ronaldo fan, but more so a sports fan. To see that, to see someone achieve that type of thing is crazy. And for him, it was instant relief. It was like weight has been, the weight of entire country, was on him. He's been compared to Maradona for probably his entire life, and that's the last thing that he really needed to complete that comparison and to even jump above Maradona for a lot of people. And you saw it because he dropped right to the ground. He didn't even run to Emmy, which he did in the semifinal. He didn't do any of that. He didn't look towards anybody else. He looked straight up to the sky and he dropped to the ground. So it showed how much relief he had after Montiel scored that penalty.
Yeah, Mac, that's really sort of what we expected. I guess you can go off of that as well, but overall, give us some of your thoughts on how this turned out, the result wise.
So let's just stick specifically to the shootout. I thought going in, whoever shoots first generally is the favorite, and France did shoot first. I think odds are like 70% of the time that you shoot first, you win. I think there's a number like that. But it's really all about who first misses, and that's really where kind of the math changes. And of course, Martinez, he's really built for this. This is kind of what he lives for. You can see he's absolutely insane in terms of his thought process, and he's willing to kind of do anything to get into the opponent's heads. And after the Coleman save, especially, I know there's been a lot of complaints about how he reacted around Tchouaméni going up to take his penalty, like walking around, talking a lot of shit, wasting as much time as possible, like trying to play with the ball as well. You can see that could have an impact on a player that realizes their team is down and compound and make it worse, which really, missing two that early in, two of your first three, that really shuts the door, potentially for your team to be able to get back in it, right? Especially if your team's now going and seeing that, maybe they think there's potential for them to miss. In terms of the actual, once the penalty shootout was over, it's interesting because most of the time when someone scores the last penalty or the keeper saves the last penalty to win it, everyone just crowds that one player, right? That's generally what would always happen in those sports moments, and kind of a relief that that player took them over the line, right? But you can see that there was kind of a couple different things going on at the same time, is where Messi didn't move. He dropped to his knees. Half the team went to him. A couple players went over to Montiel. Coaching staff was coming on and splitting up between the two as well. It seemed like they didn't know how to really celebrate that moment. And you have to feel for even Messi, because after he takes his pen, it's 1-1. It's out of his control. There's nothing he could do now to impact really kind of how people are going to view the rest of his career. And he has to sit and watch, and his team really pulls him through it, which really for Argentina, that's really been his letdown, is that he hasn't had the kind of the support around him when he's needed it, and continuously this group of players have done it. So, and now he's kind of giving that, as Gio said, that last piece of Exodia, the kind of what really made him complete football in a lot of ways. So, great scenes. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit emotional after that, because watching this man play for how many years now and seeing kind of the trouble that he's gone through, where maybe we'll go into this a little bit later about his career arc within Argentina and stuff like that, and the viewpoint a lot of people have had from him over there and how that's really changed. But overall, through the entire game, I think we can all agree that it was probably the greatest World Cup final game we've ever seen. Not just like kind of the final itself, maybe throughout the group stage, if not maybe the greatest football game we've ever seen. So maybe I've seen a lot of people say it's the best spectacle they've ever seen as well, and I don't think that's far off. Nothing else comes to mind, really.
So initially, right after that, I think it was a great spectacle, without a doubt. Obviously, the drama, extra time, the late comeback, all of it. and as well, because there's so many eyes on this game. Obviously, there's billions of people watching this game. It was great to have. As a purist, though, it wasn't the most. I think it wasn't the best game to watch because obviously you had a team that was dominated for much of the game, and then you had really an individual moments of brilliance. And so that was my only argument for that. But regardless, I do have to agree that was the best final that could have played out in terms of entertainment. Just want to jump off the back of that though, Mac. Same way Messi felt helpless after scoring his penalty and watching his team pull him over the line. How do you feel, Gio, for Mbappe pulling his team back and then in regular time, pulling his team back in extra time, and then scoring doing his job basically, and they still his team not able to really pull it off?
I think, if I were to be put into Mbappe's shoes, I'd feel not so helpless. You feel like it was a missed opportunity, and because of the injuries to come this far, everybody almost counting you out in a way, saying they're not going to be as good without these guys, yada yada. They might be ousted early, World Cup curse. You can throw that in the trash, and I think a lot of people were doubting him in terms of, can he be the next, he's probably going to captain this team very soon, with the age of the certain players that are leaving the camp. It's more so how he bounces back. Obviously, this was a generational performance, even to score a hat trick in the World Cup. I know Mac was possibly going to bring this up, but he's really this is only the second time a hat trick has been scored in a World Cup final. So for someone to achieve that, obviously it's tough to swallow to make it to World Cup. But I think in a couple of weeks, whether it's weeks or months, it'll all be in hindsight, and he'll know he put in a fantastic effort, and it's how they really bounce back is going to be the most important part. Now that you've made 2 consecutive finals, teams are going to be after you. The media is going to be after you. In the Euros and the next World Cup. How you bounce back is going to be very important. So I think he shouldn't have too much to be depressed about, or to be sad about. Yes, it was tough, but during the penalties, Emmy is Emmy. He's very good too. So to lose to a very good keeper, and to lose the team that was almost destined to win, it's tough, but it's not tough. You just kind of have to swallow and move on. And again, them bouncing back is going to be the most important part.
Matt?
I think this might be the best thing that could have happened for him in a lot of ways, where he's going to come back hungrier than ever. And understand there's levels to kind of get into these types of conversations about being one of the best players of all time. He very much can be one of those types of players. He's very young. He has a team around him in the French national team that's just going to keep getting better and better and better. A lot of these players, the Tchouaménis, the Camavingas, Theo Hernandez, Jules Koundé, two center backs that didn't even start, Saliba and Konate have large potential, and there's a lot of ways that this team can keep improving. So this is not going to be the only opportunity to do it, but could fuel a fire under him where, is there another level I can get to? Because we may argue that those last 10 minutes of that game, that extra time, he played phenomenal. And he was the Golden Boot winner, but I think we can all agree he didn't play very well most of the games. In fact, a lot of the times he was kind of following in the shoulders of other players around him, the Giroux, the Griezmanns, and they were really helping him. So is there something else he can do to improve and have more of a direct imprint on these games consistently, as well as maybe not just being kind of the goal scorer, but also a provider as well, right? Because that's, as of right now, we would argue, maybe not his strength. So I think this can only make him improve and building up even stronger. And as he went out to Instagram, is like, I think the translation was, we'll be back. And he needs to be, because he's in a position with the team around him, and he's fortunate to play for France, but and he's also that type of player where he can definitely cement himself as one of the best ever. And he's not even 24 yet. He still has lots of time.
time of recording, he's not 24 yet, because when this podcast goes out, he will be 24. His birthday's on the 20th.
23 hat trick in the World Cup. That is phenomenal.
Couple of stats. He's now the all-time leading goal scorer in World Cup finals with 4. And already, he has 12 World Cup goals. The record is 16. So if he just has one tournament like this, he smashes that record. And in all likelihood, he's probably going to play for, I would argue,
3 maybe?
Yeah. Conservatively, as well as, I think in this game, this is the first World Cup final to have a team, player from both teams score 2 goals, a brace. So you can see a lot of records were broken in this World Cup, not just by Messi, but Mbappe was doing his work too. And like I said, he's only going to get better.
Gio?
Yeah, and if you're talking about records, and you're talking about how obviously Giroud passed Thierry Henry for international goals, and they're at 57.
Yeah,
Mbappe's already at 30 odd goals. So is he gonna score 30 more? I highly think so. So that's another record on his list that I expect him to break. So he has a lot. He has a lot going for him for this national team, and again, I can see him. Obviously, it'd be shocking, for them not to award him the captaincy very shortly. Benzema's gone. All these older guys are gone. I can't see them giving it to Tchouaméni just yet, or Camavinga. He's, in terms of garnering experience in the big stages under pressure. He's done it more than these other guys, whether it's in Champions League, whether it's in World Cup finals. This is the second one. A lot of them, this is their first one. So, I can see him getting the captaincy there as well. And I just want to get into my one gripe with the penalties, with the Emmy thing that I brought up to you guys earlier. Well, last night, is that, the media showed Emmy going up to Mbappe, consoling him, damn, you beat me 3 times in the same spot. That's probably what he said, right? Knowing Emmy, probably not. But, consoling him, taps on the head, probably giving him, words of encouragement. But it's the video after in the locker room that doesn't sit right with me, where they're in a line cheering, singing, and then Emmy stops the cheering and says, "Moment of silence for Mbappe." My guy, he beat you 3 times in the same spot. You should not be saying Mbappe's name.
He beat him 4 times throughout the entire game, so 3 penalties and
in total
4 times, 3 times in the same spot.
And that's very impressive. That's very impressive.
That's very impressive. Yes, you got a hand to them, but at the end of the day, you didn't save them. So I mean, if he cheered and talked shit in front of Mbappe instead of consoling him, I would have been okay. Cool, you kept that same energy. You're about that life. Do your thing, Emmy. You just want to walk up. I cannot blame you for anything. But for him to console him and then use his name in the chair after, you're a proper dickhead, bro. That's why people don't like you unless you're on their team. So yeah, that's the one thing that didn't sit right with me. But props to Argentina.
Hey man, it's been, I guess, this sort of mentality for Argentina throughout the tournament, right? They have to come together and find, at least, what was it, Michael Jordan, who came out and said he finds an opponent every game just to boost himself up and play that way. So maybe that's just the way it was. I personally don't like it, but I mean, if you're on the winning side, it's just the way that you react. Anyways, this part's been going on for a little bit. We're going to take one last break here, and then we'll be back giving you some of our overall World Cup reactions, giving you, obviously, the honors that were given out at the end of the World Cup, and then we'll finish off with our predictions, how they turned out for this World Cup. So stay with us. All right, welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We're going to finish off the podcast reviewing the World Cup final, just giving you some of our aftermath reactions and thoughts about the World Cup final. Mac, I know you had some thoughts about sort of how this game played out and what this means for, obviously, Messi and Mbappe and Argentina, France as a whole. Give us some of your thoughts.
I think, for one, in terms of to go as microcosm as possible for Messi, this definitely kind of is the final piece of the puzzle. This definitely, in his way, there's a lot of articles talking about how he's completed football and like the transition he's made. Because a lot of the times for Argentinian fans, maybe like 5-6 years ago, a lot of the talk was that we feel he's more Catalonian than he is Argentinian, right? Where he spent most of his time playing for Barcelona, raised in Barcelona, really. But he, of course, chose to play for Netherlands. And for a lot of Argentinians, the separation between him and Maradona was too great, right? These last couple tournaments, winning the Copa America, of course, winning the World Cup now. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the celebrations for Buenos Aires. And like, I don't know if you saw that drone shot going through downtown through the obelisk. And just you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people celebrating. Every single one of them are wearing a Messi shirt. There's not a random person up other than maybe his family wearing a Cunha shirt, right? But even them, I'm probably still wearing a Messi shirt, to be honest, right? But overall, you can see the reaction that's garnered since then, and a lot of people coming out. I don't know if you saw like the video of like Mario Götze celebrating with his child. That Messi won, which is kind of funny because he's the one that scored the goal, of course, against them in 2014. So things like that, where there's just been a kind of a groundswelling around him as an individual, and definitely put his career in context. And now people are thinking yes, full circle. I know afterwards he said, I still want to keep playing for Argentina. Maybe this is not my last World Cup. I want to still keep playing if I can. But I think everyone has had the assumption this was kind of his final shot. And that may be the case. That may not be the case. But this definitely at least cements him that no matter what happens going forward is that I think what he's done for Argentinian football in general, I don't think enough words could be written or said and to give him credit for that.
Without a doubt, obviously retiring previously due to that sort of backlash that he couldn't do it for this country, coming back and really proving them wrong and bringing that nation back and into that the glory that they have now. Obviously, props to him and the way to stick it out to it. Had to mention it again. It does benefit him though. Obviously, he benefited from having half a season off last year, and obviously his eyes were set on this World Cup. A lot of superlatives going around comparing him and discussions of him not just being the best footballer, but being the best athlete of all time. And so obviously that really puts into perspective how important that is for Argentina, and how much of a accomplishment that is. Gio, I know you mentioned this. We were thinking, if Messi wins it, will he announce his retirement? Obviously, this doesn't. Obviously, he's come out saying that he wants to continue playing, whether it's at another Copa America. I don't think he'll make it to another World Cup, but if he does, he's just there to prove me wrong. I would love to see it. But Gio, I know you're talking about if Messi retires, this will shape way for not just the new team that's coming through, because they have a lot of young players, but less pressure because there's not, obviously, Messi, if he's not there won't be as many eyes and not as many followers, but the team could potentially benefit from that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think play a couple of friendlies, play this and that, but in terms of the bigger tournaments, I think if Messi really cared about this Argentinian team and how Argentina progresses as a national football club, he ideally needs to step down at a right time. They constantly rely on him for success. And without Messi, there could be a period of time where there isn't going to be much success, but they need to get over that hump. And I think they need to get over that hump sooner rather than later for the longevity of their success. So I think, obviously Messi being as great as he is, and I guess they'll never say no to Messi, is my thing. But, for the greater good of the nation, I think, for him to step down wouldn't be a bad thing. Again, it'll put, it'll force the hand of, the Argentinian FA to sort of put players into places where they haven't been before, to see if they can do it, put more into, the national team and how they recruit and how they, start bringing in players at an earlier age, things of that nature. Because at the end of the day, if Messi is still on that roster, selected every tournament, every friendly, whatever it may be, they're gonna keep looking to him. When there's struggles, when times are good, it's always gonna be messy, messy, messy. But with him being at the age of 35, ripe age of 35, that can't go on for longer. And the more you drag it on, the longer it is for Argentina to get over that hump of the struggling phase. Once he is phased out of the national side.
That being said, I completely agree. Succession planning is the way to go, I think, internationally, especially given the fact that you don't have much time with national sides. I mean, obviously, the same, I could say, make the argument the same could be said about another player, the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, where there's a young group coming through, and obviously a lot of things.
A fantastic young group, might I add. A fantastic young group.
Without a doubt. And so, that being said, even to the extent of this French team, you have some players that you think maybe with the crop that they have coming through, obviously they had a lot of injuries, but it led to players such as Colomwani, Kingsley Coman being a little more involved, Dembele getting more of action in that French team. Mac, for this French team with potentially Griezmann and Hugo Lloris playing maybe their second last tournament or their last tournament, I guess what do you see France going through in the future?
France are one of the teams that I feel like they're talent-wise, they're set no matter what happens because they have so much quality through and through, not even discussing the injuries that they had going into the tournament. Because if, for example, Nkunku was playing, we could maybe see him, this is an opportunity for his breakout tournament where right now he's playing in the Bundesliga. Maybe this kind of garners more attraction to be able to go either to the Premier League or to the Liga for a big money move, something like that. So this team is stacked, as well as the argument would be, their problems at defense. What do they do about them going forward? I talked about earlier. They're on the bench. Saliba, Konate, done. Next 10 years, you're done, set, game, match. You don't have to worry, right? They have so much depth to run through. I don't feel like they're a team that has to be concerned about it. It's more so making sure, because they've had a history of contentious locker rooms, making sure that stays, the foundations there stay strong. That's why players like previously before, there's reports like Laporte, the reason why that he ended up playing, called up by France, but he wasn't a good fit in the locker room, and that's why Deschamps never recalled him, which is why he ended up playing for Spain, right? So having that correct locker room to making sure that people are pulling the same rope in the same direction is vital. And that's why you've seen players like Benzema coming in and out of the squad and him announcing his retirement right afterwards. Even though he could have come back and played in a couple of these last couple of games, they didn't want him to. So it's very, and I think that's the line that they'll have to make sure that they're towing, because just having great names isn't a way to have a successful team. And they do have great names, but they need to make sure that team still does come first. But they should be in a position with Mbappe having that focal point if he refocuses his effort, because he knows that if it's done right, he's in a position to win tournament after tournament after tournament and to do well.
Yeah, and honestly, I have to just go back as we're closing the tournament altogether and say it's hard, obviously, winning the World Cup, not just because of who you're playing with, who you're playing against, but who you're playing with. Obviously, you don't get to transfer in players per se, and so you're really stuck with really who the best players on the national side that are picked by the coach, and so it's just makes it more fascinating how the World Cup plays out, and how I think with the passing, passing of the baton of these older players leaving, and as we've seen already, a lot of coaches have started leaving with talks of new coaches coming in. Will this be Deschamps' last tournament? For England, will they go with another manager as well? Portugal, I'm not sure if they've parted way with their manager.
Yes, they have.
And Southgate's agreed to stay on until 2024. Oh, sorry, not the next Euros. He's staying through to the next Euros as of right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so it'll be interesting because as we've seen, the tournament, you may have the best team, but I think the best coaching, execution, and right players is what wins your tournament. So very interested to see what will happen in future international tournaments that we'll obviously cover. But yeah, just wanted to mention that just as we're closing and these two teams played out. Yeah, like we mentioned, the game of the tournament. So I just wanted to quickly go through now the awards that were handed out, and we can quickly discuss those. Obviously, the Golden Boot went to Mbappe. I think this may have been the most unhappy I've ever seen him going to accept that award, and after the shootout that he had with Messi in that World Cup final game. But I mean, Mbappe won it, so Golden Boot goes to Mbappe. Golden Ball goes to Messi, being the best player of the tournament, and then Golden Glove goes to Emi Martinez. And I guess, do you guys want to discuss some of the actions that were seen by Emi Martinez, Mac?
Oh, I want to skip over the actions. Gio, you can go ahead. Sorry.
Could you expect anything less? From the shimmies, after saves and stuff like that. Honestly, a character nonetheless. You have him in every sport, and he's the one in football. Crazy to do it in Qatar, though. Super wild. Surprised he made it back on the plane.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Crazy to do it on live television. Billions watching.
Billions, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, so I think it was deserved based on the outcome of the tournament. And then Young Player of the Tournament award goes to Enzo Fernandez, who Mac mentioned, who would not be playing if Lo Celso wasn't injured, because he was called up afterwards. So, Max, some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, he's interesting there because a lot of the Argentinian players, if it wasn't due to injury, they wouldn't have been on the team. Like McAllister, he didn't really start for Argentina prior to entering this tournament. Fernandez wasn't maybe even in the team, let alone in the lineup, if Lo Celso wasn't injured. But it's interesting because the last three ones that you've mentioned, Golden Ball, they all set records in their own way. Enzo Fernandez is the first South American to win Young Player of the Tournament. Martinez is the first South American to win the Golden Glove. And Messi is the first two-time winner of the Golden Ball for Best Player in the tournament. So a very interesting historical context there for all three of those, for sure.
Yeah, and obviously, I think at the end of the day, those were deserved based on the outcome of how the tournament went and final went. So congrats to the winners. I just wouldn't like to have been Mbappe having to take that photo next to those three Argentinian players. I'm not sure if you saw it. How
crazy.
I feel for him though. At that stage, you just want to get your award and go back. So on that note, guys, let's quickly go through what we had originally predicted for the World Cup. And I'm sorry, guys. This might be a painful one, but let's go through it. I'm going to remind you guys of the categories. For the first category, we had Golden Boot. For me,
it's just not fair.
This was interesting. Let me read out. Mac, you had Neymar winning the Golden Boot, top goal scorer. Gio, I apologize. You had Karim Benzema winning the Golden Boot.
This guy didn't even have a chance.
Okay.
Hey, at least maybe you're half right. His compatriot won it. I'm not sure if we want to give him like a...
Fair. No, we don't give him any points. Next. Okay. Sorry.
Fair.
Who did you have, Ray?
For me, I had Messi, and so thank you very much.
You didn't win though.
Oh, right. You're right.
You didn't win. Okay,
I did not win.
Sure. Yep.
The next one is Golden Glove, and I think, but for this one, I think we predicted most clean sheets. We were talking who would have the most clean sheets, but ultimately, all of our predictions were wrong. I'll start with mine. Mine was Jordan Pickford, so we can quickly laugh at that one. Mac, you had Manuel Neuer for Golden Glove.
Yes.
Gio's reaction.
Yeah, that was horrible take.
And Gio, you had you were torn between picking Ederson or Alisson. You went with Alisson, but unfortunately that was wrong as well. So yeah, we were wrong on all of those first
100%.
two predictions. The most disappointing team for Mac, you had the Netherlands, and Mac, I'm gonna have to.
Can't say that. Can't say they were disappointing, brother.
Whoa! Whoa! I disagree. I thought that the best that they would make is to where they got, and that's where they got. So I don't think I was horribly off there. But I did predict them to lose in the round of 16, I think it was. I think that's where I said they would lose. They only made it one step further, so what can you do?
Fair. Though I would argue that they weren't that disappointing. Gio, you had Spain as the most disappointing team. That's a fair shout. I think
that could be argued. I think that can be argued.
You definitely got me there, for sure.
Yeah.
That could be argued for sure. Yeah. But for my pick, I picked Belgium, and I think
that deserves a round of applause.
Let's clap it up. Let's clap it up.
Good dub.
Thank you. Do you guys think Belgium had the most disappointing World Cup or Germany? Which two teams had the
Belgium? I think on top of the struggling, the negative press on that team tore it to shreds. Fair. To a point where there was no return for those guys. Yeah. So I think on top of that, the combustion of the team itself was that definitely takes the cake for me.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting to note as well, Gio. You had Spain as the most disappointing team, but as a notable mention, you had Denmark, and they finished with 1 point in 3 games in Group D. So
the Cinderella run was over.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's a decent shout for sure. Hot take, Gio. I'm sorry, that was a great call on Denmark, but your hot take was freezing cold. I'm sorry. You had Portugal to win. To at least make it to the semis, and Ronaldo to be player of the tournament. After that, unfortunately, Gio, that was
he was treated poorly by Santos.
No, Piers Morgan's on the line. The disrespect.
Don't worry, they already messaged me. Don't worry.
That being said, though, Mac, you weren't too far off. I guess you thought Uruguay, Ghana would have had some shithousery by Suarez. Him potentially getting the game-winning goal and celebrating by punching the ball towards Ghana fans. That didn't happen, but there was some drama in that game. Obviously, Ghana ensured that Uruguay did not go through. My hot take was that Japan makes it out of the group. And Asian brothers?
Yeah, that was a great call.
Let's go one again. Great call.
Thank you. My notable mention was that Messi was going to retire after winning and go straight to the MLS. I'm not sure if that's still going to happen, but we'll see. Moving on, dark horse.
Yeeks.
This one was tough. I had the Netherlands. That wasn't great. They didn't make it too far. Mac, you had Canada making it out of the group, and potentially beating Spain in that second round.
You know what? Yeah, no, we were taking the piss. We were taking the piss, but you know what? I was biased. That was 100%. I own that.
Tough pill to swallow.
And Gio, you had Uruguay as a dark horse team, which, if they made it through, potential.
You could see it.
They were almost giving Morocco vibes,
You had actual rationale for your argument. That was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
At least you're being reasonable.
100%.
Fair. Next one is player to perform well and get a big move. Obviously, we won't see it yet.
Yep.
But myself, I had Cody Gakpo. I think he will definitely get a move somewhere.
He's getting a move. Yeah.
Mac, you originally had Moises Caicedo. He, I think, will obviously get his move as well.
Yeah.
Gio, unfortunately for you, your first pick, Jonathan David, didn't shine, but potentially could get his move.
Could still get a
move.
Though,
your notable mention, Hakim Ziyech.
Free my boy from the shackles of Chelsea, man. They are disrespecting him. He honestly, I think, to speak on all of us, I think he had a tournament where none of us really expected. He was really almost a backbone of that offense. A lot of the offense went through him. So I think, he played great. And definitely you can see the potential again. But again, he needs to be freed from Chelsea.
And lastly, Mac, your notable mention was Jude Bellingham, and you gotta let me know now how many millions have been added through his performances at this World Cup.
I'll be shocked if he goes for under like 170. I'll be shocked.
Ooh.
170.
I'm thinking 180, bro. I'm thinking 180.
I'm saying it's not going to be under 170.
Oh, okay, yeah. It can't be.
Yeah, it can't be.
No,
She's a real deal for
chance.
sure. Closing it up, Golden Ball. Mac, you and I both had Messi, which we were correct. Gio, you had Ronaldo.
Sorry.
Fortunately, that's not. There's only one winner, so fortunately that's wrong. But for finals winners, finalists, I had France and Argentina. Should have kept it that way in our bracket prediction. And Argentina winning. Mac, you had Argentina, England.
Yes.
And Argentina winning as well. And Matt, Gio, you had Brazil, Portugal, which was Portugal winning. Didn't turn out that way, but yeah, those are our predictions. Anything closing you guys want to mention before we wrap up the podcast?
See, Ray, I would give you full credit for the finalist pick if you didn't change it literally less than 24 hours later.
Yeah.
You were so close to perfection, and I would argue that you should have bet some money on that, but you let it go. So it's unfortunate.
Man, when I don't bet and then I get it right.
It always happens like that. Then you start betting and you start losing. So let's just keep it that way.
That's why we don't bet.
We don't bet.
We don't bet.
No gamblers here. No gamblers here.
For sure not. Anyways, guys, this concludes our podcast for today. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. Our handle is @house_of_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, feel free to get in touch with us via email as well. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be Friday when we preview the return of club football, boys. Club football.
EPL, we back, baby.
But definitely we'll be touching on that. Until then, though, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
Gotta love the World Cup.
Thank you, Gio.
Best World Cup I've watched.
For sure. And thank you guys for listening.